Let me get situated here with my Coca-Cola and my headphones. We're recording. We're on Do Not Disturb. If y'all hear any background noise, it's just wind blowing. And and 3, 2, 1.
What's up, everybody? This is Jake here with Welch's Garage and Customs, and this is my co-host,
The 18-wheeling Coda Kid.
and we're at the Liar's Table. So this week we've got some things announced. We did get moved into our new shop over here, so and we've actually got our first customer here. He reached out to me months ago before I even moved in this shop, but yeah, we're doing a full-on custom golf cart. We done put a lift kit on it, some wheels, tires, headlights, taillights, but we're also doing paint work, interior, lighting. It's gonna be a cool piece once it's done. So
We can't show nobody nothing though, cause it's full pimp my ride style.
yeah, he didn't want to see it until it's done, and he gave me full creative control over it. So whatever you see once it's done, it came from this head up here. So
We went through here yesterday and organized the back corner of the shop. Got everything hung up where it's easily accessible. Got Jake moved in over here, and things are starting to actually come to life over here. So y'all can start reaching out at any time, and we'll kind of work with you and let you know, when we're going to be here and when we can do it. And if it works for you, then we'll try to get some other customers in here while we got some things going on. So
yeah, so that's pretty much what we're talking about there. We also done a spitball ideal last night about doing a giveaway for a grand opening. We don't know what it is yet. We haven't made up our mind. We figured we'd do something where we've made it custom, so it's a one-of-a-kind piece, and any person would love to do it. We haven't figured out if it's going to be raffled off or full like Diesel Brothers style, where you buy merch and your name gets put in a hat or whatever, and we draw it out that way. Haven't made up our minds yet on that.
we may be able to do something and possibly have something ready whenever we try to do our little show here this summer, if we can get everything lined out. But just thought it'd be a cool way to kind of give back, and you might end up with something that got a little bit of touch of a Peterbilt on it and some Welch's Garage and Customs too. So you never know what we'll come up with. We got two wild minds.
Oh yeah, so you never know what we're gonna come up with, but we did have an ideal. And shoot, if you got something that you might think it'd be a cool idea for a giveaway or whatever, shoot us an idea. We might look at it and be like, yeah, we can do something with that.
Yeah, that it's hard to kind of just come up with something on the fly, but like he said, if y'all reached out to us and had something that would maybe interest you or whatever, then we could probably kind of mingle together and get it to come to life. So we don't know, like we said, we don't know exactly what we're wanting to do, but we'll come up with something cool.
It could be a golf cart.
It might be a golf cart.
It could be a go-kart. It could be a Honda Grom. It could be a little chopper. It could be a full-size bike. It could be a pickup truck. We don't know exactly what it's going to be.
It might even be a 2000 model 379 Peterbilt, because I got one sitting over there that'd make a good project.
I think they want something that could actually run and drive.
Yeah, that one don't have no injectors in it right now. That's a pig with chrome, as me and Scratch call it. So
Yeah, I've bought a plenty that way. Shoot, we was talking the other day and we got talking about vehicles and stuff, and it made me think of, I bought a truck whenever I was 17. No, I was 18, because I was legally able to transfer the vehicle.
yeah,
First vehicle I actually traded by myself, and that was the biggest piece of junk that I got. I didn't have it for a day. My dad was mad. I traded a perfectly good pickup truck for this 60s model Chevrolet flatbed.
that's normally how it goes.
And I was going down It ran and drove. I drove it down. We hit Hopewell, and I started coming down the hill on Hopewell going towards 54. Found out the truck didn't have no brakes. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, crap, how am I going to stop this thing? And I'm downshifting, trying to get this truck to slow down. And I remember, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do here, but I guess I'm going to have to cram it in Bulldog. I remember I clutched it and I crammed it into Bulldog, and whenever I did, it just boom.
Found a Jake brake on a pickup truck, didn't you?
Yeah, I found a Jake brake in a pickup truck and scattered that transmission. I called Dad. I'm like, what do I do? He's like, me and you's going back to the guy that you got the truck from.
Yeah, I had this weird obsession with S10s back in the day when I was younger, and I would go buy a turd and take it to the house, and me and Dad throw some primer on it, put some beauty rings on it with a set of steels or something, and try to make it look cool. And I wrecked every one I had. I'll never forget, I bought I think it was a 2000 model Extreme from a guy here in Caneyville. Good looking truck, low mileage. It was just a 2.2 4-cylinder, but it was a good looking truck, man. And took it home, cleaned it up, put a few of my little touches on it. And I don't know what I was trying to prove, but one day I was over there, the subdivision across from the high school, and me and a couple buddies, we were playing basketball at one of my friends' house, and when I left, I was like, I'm gonna show off a little bit in a 4-cylinder. Which, mind you, I did have fats and skinnies on this truck. I had pizza cutters on the front of it. Well, it was raining, so I thought I'll just goose it a little bit in this little curve, get a little sideways, and everybody think I was cool. Well, I goosed it, and about the time I did, I didn't think that stopping on a wet road with pizza cutters would be so hard. When I hit the brakes, it was like a slingshot. And when it slingshotted me, there was a telephone pole. And like I said, I just got this truck, fixed it up. Actually, I'd hit a deer before this and put a cow hood on it, put the wheels and everything on it. And I dead centered that freaking pole. Well, the pole comes down, about falls on top of the truck. I get out and I'm like, my God, man. And then, to add insult to injury, knowing I could have took the truck back home and just fixed it, I threw one of my little patent fits, as we call them, and I just kicked the driver's side door in. Bam! I get it back home, my cousin brings it back to the house, and I'm thinking, oh, it don't look too bad. I can put a grill in it and put a hood back on it and this and that and the other, put a bumper and everything. Then I walked around and I seen that driver's side door, and I was like, my God, that door made me madder than hitting the telephone pole did. And it was my own fault. But I had 4 or 5 of them things and couldn't keep one on the road.
I had a couple of them, but one of my funniest stories I love telling is me and another local boy. He had a black lowered one that he had 8s and 4s on it.
Yeah.
And it was a cool looking truck. When you're 16, 17 and you've got a vehicle, you do some stupid stuff just to make it cool.
Oh yeah.
It had a sub in the back, and I remember we drive around town and you see the rear view mirror shaking from it and everything. And it was a 4-cylinder 5-speed truck. And you go out, he lived out past me, and we was headed home one night, and I was just happened to be going to his house.
Yeah.
And whenever I was going to his house, we're coming down this hill, right there past my house. You got that long hill, then there's a straight stretch, and there's railroad tracks. Well, we're sitting there coming down a hill, and you see a train coming. I'm like, dude, we can beat that train. And he's like, do you think so? I'm like, yeah, that train is way up the track, so we can beat that before it even gets there. Well, it don't register in his head about halfway of what to do.
Yeah.
And he just punches it about halfway, and he's got this thing in 3rd gear. We get to the tracks, and by this time, like, he's never shifted. It has just been redlining.
Just pegging out?
Just pegging out in 3rd gear. And as we're getting there, almost to the track, this train is right there at us. And it's on my side. And I remember Like,
Of course it is,
You
yeah.
had that one moment where you're sitting there and you're looking over here and like,
This is where it ends.
yep, you're like you see this bright light and the truck going, nah, 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 and I'm like, oh crap. We beat that train across there. And we're like, yeah. Then all of a sudden we realize that there's a 90-degree turn
curve right there,
right
yep.
after it.
Yep.
So
Oh, Yeaman Road.
we're like, yeah. Then all of a sudden he grabs the steering wheel and we come out and he's actually drifted in that ditch. We come out sideways and we come back up on the road. And then he shifts gear.
Oh, finally.
And we're sitting there head to head with the train. I'm like, that's pretty cool. But
Yeah,
it almost killed us.
I've got another pizza cutter Will story. It was my own fault again, but there's a boy, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was up there from around Clarkson area maybe, but anyway, had a 94, no, is either a 94 or somewhere in that year range, S10. Good looking little truck, 4.3 Vortec, quiet as could be. And he had it sitting up there at Charlie Nash's car lot. Well, I got my tax money back and I was working at Purdue down there in Cromwell. I did not like that job. But anyway, I got some money from my taxes and I thought, I'm gonna go buy that little truck. It had a set of Centerline Warriors on it, but it had I think they had somehow swapped it. It had a Ranger front end in it and an S10 rear end in it, so the wheels were mismatched. But anyway, it was a good looking little truck. I went up there and bought it, and about the time I bought it, there was snow and ice all over the ground, so me and my dad, we took it and parked it at the church across from Post Housey Road, and I just thought I'll let it sit there till everything clears up and it gets nice outside. Well, I would drive back and forth to work, and I'd come through and I'd see that truck sitting there, and I'm like, man, I want to drive that truck. You know, it just looks good. So one morning I decided, and my dad told me not to. He said, I wouldn't drive that truck. I wouldn't drive that truck. He said, wait till it clears up a little bit. Well, I left the house that morning, went over there, and I parked the truck I was in and got my S10. I was driving it to Cromwell. So I'm bebopping on through Caneyville, hit the parkway, and I'm somewhere between 82, 83 mile marker there on the WK going toward Beaver Dam. And I just almost lit a cigarette, but it was cold outside and I didn't want to roll the windows down. I had the heater on, had the music off. I was just cruising. It's about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning because I was working first shift. And I get going down through there and I guess I just fell asleep. Next thing I know, I wake up and my truck is in the median. By the grace of God, it was early enough in the morning, there was nobody coming on the other side because I had touched the shoulder on the other side of the road. Well, I finally got it up out of the median, and when it come out of the median, I hit the blacktop again. Well, my first instinct was just to lock it up because I was scared. Well, I locked it up, man. And that truck slung like a dart, hit an embankment there on the side of the WK, and I didn't even realize what had happened. I got out, and I was walking around, and I had a gray hoodie on, and I looked down, that thing was red as these headphones. I was like, good Lord, man, I'm bleeding. But I couldn't feel nothing. I guess I'd hit my face so hard, my nose was busted. Well, this guy going eastbound jumped across the parkway there, and he come over, man, are you all right? Are you all right? I was like, yeah. I said, I'm just worried about my truck. I said, I'm trying to see what my truck looks like. Well, the driver's side of it was pretty straight. You know, I thought I just messed up the doghouse or something on it. I walked around to the other side of that truck, and the fender was in the passenger door. I mean, it wrinkled. Mind you, I had maybe owned this truck for a total of 48 to 72 hours. So I'm all aggravated, mad at it. I didn't kick the door on this one. It wouldn't have done no good anyway. It was toasted. But I get out, and that guy's like, man, you need to sit down. He said, your nose is bleeding awful. I couldn't tell. I took my hand like that, and I mean, there was just bubbles of blood. I sat down on the tailgate, and I called my cousin. He had a Roback at that time. He come out there and got it, and took it home. Well, I called Purdue and I was going to tell them, hey, I was in an accident. I ain't coming to work today. Well, they said, unless you have an officer bring you down here to prove you was in an accident, we're going to have to terminate you. No lie. So I told them, I told them in HR on the phone, I said, well, y'all might as well go ahead and fill my spot because I ain't coming in today. I said, I ain't got nothing to drive. But anyway, I get back home, get the truck to the house, and this is the funniest part of it all. Get the truck back to the house, I go rest up. Anyway, wake up the next morning, my mom goes up to the mailbox, comes down to the house, and there's the title in the mail. I was like, way to add insult to injury there. And like I said, the problem wasn't the slick conditions or whatever on the road. If I'd have just lit that cigarette and rolled the window down, turned the radio on, I probably would have made it to work. But
Well, I don't know if you have that problem, but I had a problem for the longest time, especially around summertime. When the sun starts going down and you've been driving all day, you get really tired.
yep,
And I worked at a factory up there in E-Town, Tulsa.
Yeah.
That's where I've worked a lot. And we built Ford truck frames. And I left work one day, and it really was a stupid thing because they had a thing where you could shift your shift.
yeah,
So you can leave 4 hours early, but you have to come in 4 hours
Yeah.
of the next shift.
I got you.
So I worked second shift, and I left 4 hours early, and I done that whole switch, and I was gonna have to come back for the first 4 hours of third shift. And I'm going down the Parkway, and around that time, summertime, you know, up here it don't get dark till about 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
So that's 10 o'clock E-Town time, and I'm going, just driving along and everything, just trying to make it up there on time. And I'm dozing off. And right before you hit Ring Road, I was in my little car. I fell asleep, and I woke up to the rumble strips. I was in the far right lane.
Yeah,
I woke up, I'm in the intersection, and I sat there and I done the exact same you did. I actually jerked my wheel,
yeah,
and that spun the whole car around. I was back on the road, and I was in this lane. I spun the whole car back around. It went completely 360 and landed in the left lane instead of the right lane.
Yeah.
And I just kind of stopped there.
took a sigh of relief.
Yeah, I'm sitting there, I'm looking in the rearview mirrors, I'm like, there's some cars behind me. They slowed down. And I'm like, this could have been really bad.
Really bad.
And I got in the car and drove up the road, stopped at the McDonald's, got me one of them, like the big frappes, just trying
Yeah.
to wake
Stay
me
awake.
up. And I'm like,
Yeah, so lesson 1 today, don't drive when you're tired.
yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of times you was talking about, like in the summertime or stuff, you get out in these long days, and even this time of year, you know, with it getting dark so early, it just makes you feel tired earlier. And there's a lot of days, not that I'm tired driving or anything, but there's a lot of days when I get in the truck and I'll leave out of here, and I won't even really realize it until the day's over, but I'll never turn the radio on. I'll just kind of, you know, I'll turn my phone off and won't kind of entertain it for a while, and then you get back home and you're like, dang, I've not had like any interaction with anything today, because you just have them days sometimes when you might be gassed out a little bit, or you don't want to hear nothing but the sound of the truck going down the road. And I don't know, there's been a lot of days that I'll just get in that thing, and as the day goes on, I'm kind of like, man, I don't want to do nothing but just sit here and ride, you know?
Yeah, I've done that too. And
It's almost like when you get home and you're too tired to take a shower,
Yeah.
even though you're nasty and you stink.
yeah, I've done a lot like that, but my thing is trying to stay awake while I'm driving every once in a while. So normally I'll roll down the window, and
Yeah.
I don't care if it's the winter time or whatever. I try to get out of my comfort zone.
Stick your head out the window and take your breath away.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I'm like, I've went down the road before and just stuck my head out the
Yeah.
window and looked like a dog. sometimes I'm just bored and I bark at cars while they pass.
Who is this crazy guy and what is wrong with him? I don't know, man. It's driving while you're tired is extremely dangerous, and I don't know. There's been some times that I've been just exhausted and had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
There's been times even in the past 3 or 4 years driving these trucks, stay out late or have to get up super early, and that feeling hits you. I get a load off, and even though I may have another one, there's been times I've had to kind of stop and take a 30-minute reset because I'm not putting my life in jeopardy
Yep.
or someone else's life because I feel like I'm on a timetable,
Yeah, it's a bad deal.
Yeah, it's not so bad when it works out and everybody's okay, but
Yeah.
sometimes you bust your nose and you total a truck and you get the title in the mail the next day, and that's kind of embarrassing. But what's some other things we got kind of going on here? What's something I know? What's hard about doing this podcast for me is I can sit here without this phone in my face and talk and have ideas come to me all day. I think we was over here for probably 12 hours yesterday,
And
working, cutting up, and then you sit down here and you try to come up with something to talk about, and it's like you're just staring at this microphone going, what do I say now?
Well, I was kind of glad. I know you was planning on going over to your brother's concert yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of glad y'all didn't, because this garage would have been kind of boring with me just in here working.
Yeah, and not being able to hear Scratch get mad and aggravated when he can't get his chicken lights to work.
Yeah.
Hey, if y'all just want some entertainment one day, don't take it to heart how he acts sometimes, but if y'all would just come over here and sit at this couch or one of these chairs and watch my dad for about an hour one day, I'm telling you, it would be better than watching an episode of America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yeah.
He's smart and can do about anything he wants, but if something aggravates him, you're gonna hear about it.
It's like,
I can't say no, I get aggravated too. Like I said, we try to keep it as PG as possible on here. Some of our guests, I will say that we're gonna have on here. It may not be PG, but that's just how some people talk.
might be PG-13. We
Yeah.
might have to tone them down a little
Yeah,
bit,
but that's just how some people talk. But I know there's a lot of people that probably watch us. You get to working on something and you do it about 15 times and it still ain't working, and you just haul off and you call it an SOB or an MFer, and you feel a little better. And then when you sit down, it's kind of like that TikTok I made. You get done with all that and you finally get done, you come over here, you grab you something to drink or you smoke a cigarette, and you're like, that truck or that car or that motorcycle or that golf cart could care less how I just talked to it, and I wasted all that energy.
I call them every name in the book.
Yeah, there's not a dictionary that could compare to some of the things we come up with.
And the thing that I'm world's worst about calling them is a piece of junk, Chinese, worthless, beep, 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 beep. And I got that from Dad, because Dad would always say something like that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm working on an American-made vehicle, and I'm like,
Yeah, but that's like me growing up. I tell people all the time, and if you know us, you know, and my brothers and sister, they all know, but working with Dad sometimes when I was little, or even, into my older, you seen us the other day.
yeah.
Me and Dad will get aggravated at each other. There'll be 3/4 inch wrenches flying around trying to dodge them. I guess if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge anything.
And I don't know why, but it seems like watching you two bicker just calms me, because I'm sitting there and I'm just looking back. I'm like, why don't we just try this? Like, this would be a lot easier if we just done it this way.
Yeah.
And like,
If
well,
you
you
just
was trying to get that shock on, and you and your dad was bickering back and forth, and I walk over there and I'm like,
peck it with a hammer twice
Peck it.
and it goes right in.
yeah, he's like,
Yeah, I just had to crack open a twisted tea and sit down and leave them alone.
well, it was like your dad, he was over there working on them chicken lights yesterday, and he was up underneath fussing at them things, and he's sitting there, and he's having the world's biggest fit over these chicken lights, and he looks over at me, and I'm not gonna say what I did, but I messed up something, and it was kind of a big ordeal, and he just walks over and looks at me. He's like, "Huh," and I'm just sitting there like, "It's up, it'll be all right. I can fix it."
We can fix it. We'll
I'm like,
just
"It's
have
all right. I can fix it," and he's over there bickering about chicken
to do
lights.
some redneck ingenuity. Hey, if you don't mess up, I've had plenty of people tell me, if you don't mess up, you ain't trying anyway. So if something don't go wrong, something's wrong anyway. Because if something's going right the whole time you're trying to do something, something really bad's waiting
Well,
when you get finished.
That's a father and son thing also when you're bickering back and forth. Me and my dad, we couldn't work together. We had a mowing company together.
Yeah.
And me and him fought more than anything. He'd sit there and tell me, go do it this way, and I'd do it my way. And me and him would fight, and that's how it was.
Well, I'm sure you felt the same way with your dad too. I know a lot of people say, you're their parent, you can't be their friend. Well, that's not true, because I remember when I was little, I always told my dad, you're my
Yeah.
best friend. And I love my mama, and she's my best friend too. You can have more than one best friend, but I'm around my dad every day.
Yep.
What I'm doing involves him. He is 50% of Caney Creek trucking. Without him, I've not got another
Yeah.
truck on the road right now. And I'm with him every day, whether we're here working on something or we're out driving. And when you're around somebody all the time, you start forming habits and,
Yeah.
and doing things that they do. And then you sit back and you realize you're like, dang, man, I'm my own person, but I'm a lot like my
Yeah.
dad. And my dad's my best friend, but he's my father first. He
See-
helps me out, and
See, you're with your dad every day. I lost mine.
yeah,
But I do the exact same things that he did.
yeah,
And me growing up with him, I'll sit there and I'll be going down the road and I'll pop off some kind of wording, and I'm like, that sounds just like Dad. I'm like, I've heard Dad say that.
Yeah.
It'd be something random. Like, if you asked me say something my dad would say, I couldn't tell you right now, but if we got talking and you done something stupid, I could throw off a remark that he would do. I'm like,
it just slips up,
Yeah.
and then it'll catch you. But another cool thing too about me and you becoming as close as we've come, like I know, and as we've told the viewers, you lost your dad a few years ago, but it's kind of cool seeing how you and my dad interact, because Dad's the same with everybody, and it's pretty cool seeing how he's as hard on you
Yeah.
as he is
Yeah.
me. But he knows that Jake has a lot of potential, and he sees potential in me, and he wants to push us, and he teaches us both. We learn things from him, but there's a lot of times where we have ideas that would work and make things a lot easier, but he ain't gonna let that happen.
yeah. But it's also fun just sit back and just listen to his stories. He'll sit there and tell
Yeah, he's
stuff,
full of
and with me knowing a lot of stories from Dad, I can see his point of view on a lot of things, because I've heard the exact same stories with Dad. Now,
It's cool too, because you really don't think about it until you lose people. And I guess it doesn't hit me as hard because I've still got my dad and some older people around me that I grew up with. But those people who are, my dad's 68 years old, so those people are like a glimpse into the
Yeah.
past for us, a world that we knew nothing about, but we get to learn about as we grow up. And then we'll be those guys one day.
Yeah.
We kind of already are to some people, but that's a cool way to look at it. Like the older generation is a glimpse into the past to, how things used to
Yeah.
be and how the world was. And it is, it's a lot different now. It seems like back then there was a lot more people that kind of got together and hung out and do
Yeah.
things like we try to do, but
and it's hard to get the newer generation doing anything unless it involves a phone or a computer
yeah,
screen.
and that's just because it's so easily accessible. You've got it right. It's like we was talking in the first episode. You've got everything right
Yeah.
there.
Well, also, you gotta think a lot. You got the people that does I don't understand it, but if y'all do it, it's more power to you. like the truck simulators and
Yeah.
and the stuff like the dirt track racing games and all this that everybody gets into. That's like their reality to them.
Yeah, and the sad part about it is them guys might make really good dirt track
Yeah.
racers or truck drivers, you know?
And I'm sitting there and,
All the money they spend on them setups.
and I think we was talking about it, and I wouldn't mind getting into like a little hobby for me and my son, and we talked about getting into, I like the RC stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought about getting him one of them there's a track in Livermore that it's a 1/18 scale track, and they run dirt track cars. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's kind of cool. And the starting off car is $200, and I think it's $5 to run. I'm like, that's cool. And I'm like, well, I might get into slot cars. I'm like, me being a little bit of the older generation, I still like messing with models. And I'm like, man, I get them slot cars, put about any body on it as
Yeah.
I can. I'm like, we'll go. And I was talking to a guy up the road, and he's like, man, said, be prepared because you're about to spend a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, a lot of them guys run about 5 or 6 cars. And he said, them cars, by the time you build them, said that's a couple $100, and the remote's a couple $100. And I'm like, shoot, by the time I spend all this money on this hobby, I can build the real thing at home.
And exactly. And a lot about what you just talked about is one reason that I think a lot of kids don't get into a lot of things nowadays because, you know, mom and dad go to work and they bust their butt every day to make money just to be able to have a house, feed the mouths that are at the table, put gas in their vehicles. You basically work just to go back to work. And there's not a lot of extra room in there to, you know, invest in your kids' hobbies or whatever if they're at a younger age. And then, you know, when a kid grows up and becomes of the working age, everybody's got to start somewhere. And trust me, I get it. Like, I treat I've been blessed, and I know you do your business the same way. I use these trucks as my hobby. It's my job, number one. It's a lifestyle, and it's a hobby to me. I get to kind of put my personal touches on them, make them look the way I want to. And my dad has always told me, he said, your vehicle, whatever it is, whether it's a Honda Grom, a golf cart, a bicycle, whatever it is, your vehicle is a representation of you. And I'm kind of like you when it comes to stuff. I want to have one little thing or something that just stands out that sets me apart from everybody. And, you know, but like we were talking, it feels like it's a lot harder for people to be able to get into new things with the cost of stuff and how advanced things have gotten now is why it's so expensive. You know, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you could go to Radio Shack and buy a monster truck RC car that was fun as all get out for 75 or $100.
Yeah.
Beat that thing to death, jump it off retaining walls, you know, and now they're $400.
Yeah, I know one guy, he's got one, man, I'd love to have it. He's got one about the size of that dang golf car over there. It's gas powered too. That thing's $3,500.
Have you ever seen them planes?
Yeah.
Them planes are wow.
Yeah,
that was my best airplane sound.
I got a few, like I've got a Gravedigger one, and I love playing with it. It's broke right now because I've got a tree in my front yard, and it was awesome doing backflips on, and it broke my steering servo.
We used to have the Supra from the Fast and Furious, the orange one. My nephews had a big scale RC car of that Supra, and we used to take that thing out in the snow and ramp it off ramps. And
But it's getting hard to afford anything for kids. I remember Dad, like with Valentine's coming up, my dad, he didn't get me that's kind of a girly holiday,
yeah.
so he didn't really get me. And there was 2 things that he always got me. And he'd always get me some kind of little chocolate or something. And I hate to say it, but it was one of them Ford truck chocolates because it was a Ford, or it was a truck.
Yeah.
And he'd always get me one of them, and he'd always get me something little besides that. But I remember one year he went to Tractor Supply, and he got me a mini bike.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking at these prices of mini bikes, and I'm like, for the price of a mini bike, you can almost go out and buy a full-size motorcycle for the price of a mini bike.
I'll tell you how we used to have fun. You remember them little pedal cars and tractors and stuff they used to make? Well, when we was growing up, we'd go to Towsea, and my nephew's papa, he had a four-wheeler. Well, we would tear Towsea up, man. We'd hook a rope behind that four-wheeler and tie that tractor, or the little bucket that come with the tractor, or a pedal car or something. We'd go down in the field at the picnic grounds and see who could hang on the longest or not get hurt. But and you could still do stuff like that today. It just kind of, I don't know. I guess it's funner for some people to just be cooped up in the house all the time.
Well, I started off with Dad. He got me a little ride mower.
Yeah.
The ride mower wouldn't go very fast. That's how I worked up to a four-wheeler. And you sitting there talking about getting tied up to them. I had a go-kart for the longest time. And I mean, I'd sit there and play that. I've got stories on that one. We've got a shed in the turn. We had a circle driveway.
Yeah.
And we had a shed, and I remember I started getting to the point where I could kick it sideways. I was drifting. Well, it's all fun and games till it actually catches one way and it throws the back end back around.
Yeah.
And I hit that shed. I hit that shed wide open, and whenever I hit it, my steering wheel hit me right in the chest, knocked my breath out. And I walked up there to that, walked up to Dad, and Dad's working on a car, and he's like, "Is everything all right?" And I'm like, "I hit the building." And he's like, "Well, drag it up here." So I had to walk back over there and grab the front end of this go-kart, because what happened was whenever it bent my steering link on the front. So I picked up the front end and I dragged it up to the front of the garage.
Walk of shame.
And Dad, he fixes the steering wheel. And we sit there and he gets it done. It only took him, it seemed like 15 minutes. And he got it bent back, and he's like, "Jump on it again." And I'm like, "I ain't gonna ride that dang thing anymore." He's like, you got two options. You can get on that and ride it, or you can get your butt busted and you're still gonna ride
For giving up? Yeah.
Because he's like, and he didn't want me to get scared of it.
Yeah.
So it took me a couple laps, and next thing you know, I'm getting faster and faster. But I had that thing for a long time, and I burnt up the clutch on it. And we had a three-wheeler, and Dad hooked.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, Dad hooked the three-wheeler up to the go-kart. I'm riding it.
That's like, that thing, a three-wheeler is basically like sitting down looking at a piece of paper that says, it doesn't say this may hurt you, it says this will hurt you. We had one of them too, and a golf cart as well. We had a golf cart for so long. I think my papa and my dad bought it for me and my brother Shane, and we rode that thing so much in the top of Mom and Dad's yard out there around them trees. There used to be a few more trees up there, but it looked like a legit dirt track because we just wore it out. I remember one time me and Shane, he was talking about getting them sideways and stuff. Of course, I was always riding, so I'm like hanging on for dear life. And if you know Shane, he's as wild as anybody. If it's got four wheels and makes noise, he's gonna drive it for everything it's worth. No, this go-kart, this is the go-kart. But if it makes noise and it's got wheels on it, we'll put it that way. He's gonna give it everything he's got. And I remember one time he was coming around this tree, and I think he used to see just how close he could get or how dangerous it could be, and we rode that thing, and how I didn't end up with broken bones all my life. We'd take our bicycles and ramp little, ends of driveways with the tiles, or get a skateboard and come down here to Caneyville, the post office hill there, going down toward the ballpark. I'll never forget one time I skint myself from head to toe. My dad bought me this little cheap skateboard. I think it come from a truck stop or something. And I was the coolest kid in the world, man, because Shane, he used to skate and everything. I was the coolest kid in the world. I had me a skateboard, and I was going to take off down that big hill. Well, if I'd have sat on it, I probably would have been all right. But I'm like, no, I'm riding this thing. It's like rocket power. So I get me a little run at it, and I stand up on it, and I knew as soon as it started going, I done messed up. You want to talk about speed wobbles? And I can't remember if I think it was Clinton. We had an old camcorder, like one
Yeah.
with the VHS
Yeah.
tapes in it, and Shane would film himself skating. And I'll never forget, I was over at Clint's house one time, and we found this old tape, and I played it. And I go down off that hill, you can see me go. And I come back up the hill, and I'm screaming, I got my first injury! I got my first injury! And I'm skin up. And the adrenaline from getting my first injury skateboarding did not last long because I was in agony afterwards. If I could go back in time and tell myself not to do some of the stupid crap I done, I could have saved a lot of pain.
I hurt myself a lot too. I remember Ghost Rider came out, and it's whenever Nicolas Cage goes up and he stops in front of that van,
Yeah.
and he does a stopping. Well, at this time, I've got a 10-speed bicycle,
Yeah.
and I've got actual front brakes now. I'm like, I'm gonna do this stopping, and I'm going around, and there's a straight stretch in that little circle driveway of mine, and I remember I just slammed on the front brakes and got the front end to pick up, and I got it to pick up just enough, and about that time, that's all I needed, because it went over, and I remember
Cartwheel?
I remember sitting there seeing in slow motion, like my face going towards the gravel, and I just flip, and Mom comes out and is like, Jacob, are you okay?
We used to take our the ones that didn't have the front brakes
Yeah.
on them. We used to take our foot and shove up there in between the fork and the tire. Sometimes it'd work, and sometimes you get your foot caught up in there, and you was gone anyway. We used to run over soda cans and make them sound like dirt bikes. And
Yeah, that was good days. Now, our driveway was gravel,
oh yeah,
and I remember one time it was the best one. We just had gravel put in this too. Dad just paid and had someone put gravel around it, and it was all nice. And about that time, Dad was doing a lot of mechanic work, but we was working on a stock car for Keith Torrance.
yeah.
And Dad just got this stock car fired up. Well, we got a circle driveway. I remember Dad had me climb into this, we had to climb into this car, and I was sitting on a milk crate
Yeah,
in this stock car.
Classic.
And it's like full on like race car, and we sitting there, and he's like, hold on to the roll cage, and he gets on it, and he's making laps around this.
he was sharing the new gravel with the neighbors.
Yeah,
Wasn't
he was sharing the gravel. I remember Mom, she comes out, like she pulls in, and when she comes in, she sees about that time we're kicking it sideways, and she's like, you all's gonna be raking up this gravel.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, nope, I wasn't driving. And I sit there, I remember
Hey, if Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
I hid, and Dad's out there for a while with a rake, raking all that gravel up, and we had to go over to we gave the neighbors some money because there was so much gravel dust on them. They had a black Thunderbird like yours.
Yeah.
And by the time we got done with it, that car was white. And Dad had to sit there, and he's like, here's you some money to
Go
clean
get you a car wash. But hey, keep the extra gravel, because I ain't bringing the rake over there.
It was a good old times.
Yeah, my dad, he used to take us out, and we'd go ride around in an old 4-wheel drive or something. Or there's no telling how many times we've been in situations, and I'm thinking, how are we going to get out of this? What are we doing? And somehow we always made it back to the house. Now, whether we had all the body panels on the vehicle when we got back home is another story. But
Dad, he had a Jeep, he got a CJ5, and I think we had that Jeep for a total of one day before he decided to go out and take the top off of it, the doors, and that was one of the vehicles he started, like, whenever I was riding with him, it was a manual, and I thought it was so cool. He'd sit there, he'd go down the road, he'd push it in the clutch, and he'd have me reach over, grab the shifter and shift the gears. But we took it out, out past our house. My brother-in-law has some property on that road. I'm not really for sure what road it is, what it's called, but they used to have a junkyard out there, and there was a creek, and Dad sat there and took this Jeep through that creek, and I remember we got so far in it, we got stuck, and we're rocking it back and forth, and we finally get it out of the creek, and it took us a bit, and when we got it back, I remember, Mom hadn't got home yet.
Yeah.
And Dad decided to take it in our creek, in our backyard. And he got that thing stuck.
Yeah.
He got this thing stuck, and I remember, like, our creek was deep. Like, there's a big drop off.
Oh yeah, there's
into the
a
creek.
pretty good embankment there.
And he got it stuck, and I remember, like, being a kid looking out the back door, because I done got out, I done bailed.
I ain't getting in trouble.
I done got out of the Jeep and ran to the truck, or to the house. I remember looking, and you could only see the top of the Jeep because it dropped down so much. I think he had to go over there and get the record and drag it down.
Well, hey,
the creek.
at least he had the record.
Yeah. But yeah, them's good memories that you don't forget.
See, that's what's good about sitting at the liar's table. You can just kind of ramble on, but there's a jet going over us or something outside. You can hear everything in this building, so if y'all hear some background noise, we apologize. We'll eventually have this where we don't have to move this table and stuff all the time and have this a little bit better setup. But
Yeah, we're hoping to have a little room or something where it can knock out the sound and everything.
Before we cut this one today, I know we kind of went off the rails, but I believe that we might have, we're not going to say who yet, but I believe that we are going to actually have our first guest next weekend.
Yeah.
Pretty big guest. A lot of you will know him. So we're looking forward to that. And after we get through one guest and see how it goes and see if we can do this with having somebody here with us and keeping the wheels turning, you know, up here and being able to have some things to talk about, then we will definitely start trying to venture out and get some more people on here. So we kind of just wanted to give y'all a little heads up to keep staying tuned.
Yep.
This is actually, hey man, this is our first podcast we've made it through on one take.
I wouldn't say that. We don't know if we got the sound on up there.
Yeah, as long as we got the record turned up and the phone's still recording, because let me tell you, last week was a SHIT show. But anyway, I'm going to let Jake do a little bit of an outro here. And man, I had fun today. This was a fun show.
Yeah, and we didn't have to take so many takes on this.
Yeah,
together,
I kind of think when we just go with it and try not to plan and invest so much in it, it goes better. But we're not saying that we're not going to invest in it. We're definitely invested, as you can see. But it's a little bit better when you just kind of hit it from the fly and wing it. So get us out of here, brother.
All right. I hope y'all enjoyed the show. Make sure, if you're not following us already, follow us on TikTok, Welch's Garage and Customs, Coda Kid. Follow our Facebook page, The Liars Table, our YouTube channel, which is The Liars Table. Be sure you subscribe, and I'll see y'all next week.
And we will have a Liars Table podcast TikTok page set up soon. But hey, we appreciate you guys. Thank you for pulling up a seat to the Liars Table. We'll catch you next week.
Catch y'all next time.